found out while we've been waiting for the 4 o'clock Sydney time, or actually most of Australia except for Perth and Adelaide, to click on over at 4 o'clock. And Alex was telling me that the McGrath Awards night, again, I think it's the 3rd year in a row, #1 agent in McGrath, just ahead of Steinway and Truancy. Was it, just for the record, Alex, was Truancy 2 or Truancy was 3?
Peter Chauncey was 3 and Matt Steinway was number 2. And both are agents that have dominated their markets for many years. So these guys have probably, for me, they've paved the path and inspired me. So what I've achieved is, I guess, a reflection of their efforts in the past.
So welcome everyone, by the way. You are now live on Facebook as well. This is the time of the month where we call it Tech Tuesday, a webinar that we do for 30 minutes that is sponsored by Realtair, our good friends in real estate tech space. And normally we cover training content and we cover a few of the things that agents are doing to win. I also give a little bit of a shout out to Realtair because we're trying to encourage as many agents as possible to be using the great ecosystem that Realtair has developed with some of their products, including, of course, Pitch, which you can use as a digital introduction, the price update, which you send out on a regular basis that allows a vendor to get an update on what's happening in the market. They receive it by text message. But in addition to that, today I was not going to waste the opportunity to allow our audience to hear the great man talk about, I mean, there's not many people that have run a $10 million sales business as an effective business unit, sales super team. And that has Alex. I had the luxury and the privilege of having you speak to my real estate Gym Plus members the other week. And I was just listening to you. What interests me about you, Alex, and I find fascinating is, though you are absolutely smashing it, you're a hard scorer on yourself. I noticed that about you. You sort of say, yeah, like I'm really a 5 out of 10 there. I could be doing it more. I might have been a little bit complacent there. I should be doing more on this. You still, in your own eyes, you still feel like there's a heap of things that you can be doing better.
Yeah, that's genuine, mate. I mean, the perception from the outside is that if you're writing big numbers, then everything is just beautifully structured and systemized and you just got this perfect business. But the reality from inside is that there's a lot of gaps in my business. I mean, there's a lot of things that I haven't adapted to as well as I should have. There's a lot of opportunities that I'm missing. I'm very self-critical. I don't think I'll ever change, mate. I mean, whether I write, 500,000 or 5 or 10 million, I still think of myself in a critical way. I don't know if that's a bad thing. It's probably not a good thing because you got to sort of sometimes pat yourself on the back and acknowledge that you've done well and give yourself a bit of credit. But I think the critical thinkers are always looking for innovation and improvement. And I think that journey keeps going. There's never an ending destination.
Yeah. And I think also I'm going to add, Alex, most of the people that are on here or on social media watching this right now, most of the audience is on social media watching it, though we have got 109 people on the Zoom right now. They'll know that I love real estate. I make a living out of real estate. I don't like certain elements of real estate. I don't like people that either have a bit of success and then expose that success in a louder way than they do in other professions. Or sometimes, Alex, it's even people that haven't had success, but they show success. You know what I mean? You've been able to remain like pretty grateful and humble at the benefits that real estate has given you. Is that an effort or it's just the way you are? It's your life.
Oh, Tommy, I grew up in housing commission. I came from nowhere and I feel like I'm a nobody. So I don't know what I've got to put out there to make myself seem special because I don't feel that way internally about who I am. I mean, I admire a lot of other people and how they operate, and I look to them, as in admiration. And so I don't see myself as being anyone special. And I don't think that's an inherent thing. I don't know whether it's the way I grew up, but it's that's how I live. This is how I'm comfortable. So I've just got to reflect my own personality.
So one of the messages that we use, my training philosophy is a very similar philosophy to you. And by the way, everyone that's watching, mate, if you want a great keynote speaker and you don't want to get a trainer, you want to get someone that's doing it in the trenches, none better than this man. The ability that he has to articulate what you should be doing with sellers, buyers, how you stay in touch with people without having commission breath, how you put deals together, how you list a property and not overprice it. He does it in such a beautiful way. But the big philosophy that I have with you, Alex, is that it's so much easier to be a big fish in a small pond, to be a rock star in a smaller area. And I'd love you to share your philosophy of creating a core area and farming it, and explain the process that you took that shifted you from being a generalist to everything to actually specializing in the current marketplace that you're in. And then I'm going to touch on how you're able to use technology now to actually totally saturate that cohort of people to actually be thinking about you. But you weren't always a core area specialist, were you? You were at one time a generalist.
Yeah, I was a generalist, Tom, and it was a generalist because I felt like if I specialized in something, I'd miss other opportunities. It was this sort of scarcity mindset that, you know, if I try and narrow my BDA or my target area, I'm going to miss all these other opportunities that might come from different areas. But I learned through failure, through years and years of failure, that if you want to build an attraction business, you have to be a specialist in this industry. Whether you want to be a specialist geographically, which I think is the best business in this country because it becomes self-fulfilling and it's easy to build and scale, or you're a specialist in a product manner, whether it's, you know, waterfront properties or apartments, or it could be anything, you know, high-end real estate. I think to have that degree of specialty is what's going to attract more consumers and business to you. And everyone wants an attraction business. So how do we build that? Because, you know, this industry is very profile driven. You know, I've noticed that, you've probably noticed that. There's a lot of highly skilled agents that have been doing it for 30 years, but they're still underperforming. And you think, well, hang on a sec, these guys, they know everything. They've been around for a long time and they know the business better than the other guy that's been doing it for 3 or 5 years, but they don't get the opportunities. Why is that? They don't have strong profile and they haven't built their profile. And, you know, we're talking about tech, and tech is the best way to build profile. I don't think there's ever been a time historically that you can communicate with a massive audience and target them even geographically using an iPhone and an internet connection. Like, you used to need a big production crew. So, you know, why aren't we taking advantage of these things? I think agents are somewhat overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. And with every journey, the beginning is the hardest part. And once you're in it, it starts to become an easier move. So I'm thinking, if I'm starting myself again in Sydney, Tom, you know, I live in Brisbane, as you know, and you say, Alex, you know, what are you going to do? How are you going to build profile? I would use social media. I would use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I would be doing videos, you know, 60, 90-second videos. I'd be doing reels. I'd take some content. I'd cut it up. I'd look at interesting things like interest rates, inflation, what's happening with the economy, the growth in the markets, you know, what's the RBA governor saying, and take these pieces of content that make you look like an intelligent person and communicate that with your audience in a raw, unprofessional manner. It doesn't have to be polished. And then boost that content, sponsor that ad, and get cut through geographically in the area that you want to target. So if you had an investment of, say, $5,000 and we did 10 videos and we put $500 towards each video and we boosted each video for, say, 2 weeks, I promise you that after the 10 videos, your profile and your following will grow dramatically. People will see you as the intelligent source of information. So we've got our own channel now. So as an agent, you can have your own media channel through social media. That's never been at our disposal before, but I don't see many agents utilizing this well. And even myself, you know, when I first started doing social, I was doing a lot more video content. I was a lot more active in that space, and it worked for me. You know, I'd go into a street in the suburb I sell in, I'd get someone with an iPhone to film me, and I'd talk about what's sold in that street. So I'd say the last 3 sales, number 3 sold for this, number 20 sold for that, number 38 went for this. This is the average price over the past 5 years for this street. And then I would boost that content geographically very narrowly around that street. And the cut through that you would get the relevance that that content has to the consumer isn't something that anyone else is doing. So a lot of ideas, but I think to narrow it down, I would say build your profile through social media, use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and boost it, sponsor the ads geographically in the areas that you want to target. And for me, there's no better way of building profile than using good content on social, boosted to reach the audience.
Yeah, absolutely love and confirm. And I agree with everything that you said. You can do it at an astonishing speed as well, Alex. At an astonishing speed, you can be from no one to 2-3 years later, people are talking about you. They're seeing you in the street. Yeah, I follow you. In the old days, like 30 years ago, the only way people recognize who had the listings and that was through print media or signboards, but not everyone's going to drive around every street. We didn't have, obviously, the big portals now also have a play because you can work out social proof, who's listing and who's selling when you do there. So I agree. And I said it to you 2 weeks ago, Alex, or last week when we were in Brisbane, that I've been getting a lot of referrals just in the last 5 weeks, me testing content on there, not as a trainer. And again, today, Susan sends me another one. I got one again, and it's a lady in the right area that says she's actually even picked the date. She goes, I want you to sell the house and I want you to auction the house. I've already got the date. All these are just on a platter. I said, oh, how did you get onto me? I said, she goes, I follow you on, I think it was Facebook. That one was on Facebook, right? So, Alex, I can tell you, as being the subject and the scientist myself, I see it. We're in the business of getting attention. And the truth is, you don't have to be that bloody brilliant to get attention, because some of the stuff that's being thrown out there is not that useful for consumers. If you look at some of the content that goes out there, you think to yourself, how will it actually educate or help a vendor move closer towards you? Do you agree?
Oh, I definitely agree. To me, Tom, time is the most valuable commodity in this world. You can buy pretty much anything you want, but you cannot buy any more time. The efficiency that tech has created for us in this industry is something that 15 or 20 years ago, you would have to spend 2 weeks coming up with content that you can create in 5 minutes. So we've got this luxury now of these tools at our disposal, but I think there's a reluctance to use them. Why? Maybe there's a bit of shyness, or no one wants to be on camera. I hate to see myself on camera or hear myself. I think we all cringe a little bit when we do that. But the consumer's not getting very good quality content from our industry. They're hungry for it. And interestingly enough, what's something to us that seems quite easy to know and generalized in terms of content, to them, it's actually quite profound. They don't have access to the data that we do. We can look at CoreLogic and Price Finder, and we can segment suburb median prices for the past 5 years and have a video just talking about that, and then boosting that in that suburb and saying, well, if let's say you're in Balmain in Sydney, this is the average price for the last 5 years. This is the growth rate that we've had in 2021 and then 2022. This is the volume of sales that we're experiencing per annum, and we've seen a diminished volume over the past couple of years. Be the educator of intelligent information, and it doesn't have to be polished. You could stutter, you can make mistakes. The video can be a little bit grainy and not the best quality. The consumer doesn't care. They are hungry for quality content. And if you become the source of that content, then you become the source of them wanting to speak with you. Because the calls that I get, Tommy, I get people asking me about real estate that have no interest in doing business with me. They're calling me saying, oh, my mum's got a property here. She's thinking about doing this to it. What do you think? Should she do it or not? There's no business in it for me, but they see me as a credible source. And that's why they're reaching out. And when the time comes to sell, I'm on the shopping list. So I think every agent needs to get on the shopping list. And to your point, I mean, your teachings have taught me all of these things. It's at the attraction agent model. That's what you want to create. And that's going to be easier to create today and probably harder to create in 5 years, because not everyone's doing this stuff well today, but they'll catch on to it and they will do it, and your content will get less cut through and it'll get more expensive. I mean, when Instagram and Facebook started sponsoring ads, the cut through you would get 6-8 years ago was a lot better than today. It's costing a lot more today. Today, the efficiency is more in TikTok from what I'm learning. So you can do the sponsorship on TikTok, and because it's not that strong, or it hasn't grown as big as Facebook is, and it probably will, it's cheaper and it's more cost effective. So for me, there's an opportunity right now for agents to sit down, make a note of 5 to 10 different pieces of content that you want to convey, something that's relevant to your audience. Some of it might be market statistics. Some of it might be economic data, like interest rates, inflation. Some of it might be specific to that suburb, the growth, the volume of transactions, the trends that you're noticing, and put that into a very short video, sponsor it in your area. And I believe that by doing that, you'll build a following. And after you build a following, you'll become the source. And ultimately, when someone wants to sell, you'll have a much better chance of getting the business than if you sit back and do nothing and wait for it to come to you. It's not going to come to you if you don't get out there and do it.
And this is a perfect segue, Alex, to talk about once you have had some sort of relationship, and let's call it a have met, that you've met them, right, versus a have not met, then the opportunity is to stay in touch with them and to be sending them information. And yes, I'm going to talk about pitch very briefly, where you're sending them pitch, whether that's the price update every 3 months, giving them information that's educating them about surrounding sales, or using pitch as when you go to that listing presentation when they are ready to send them something out beforehand. What are the sorts of things that you reckon could make pitch even more attractive? Like you're a big believer in video, and yeah, tell me a little bit about your thoughts there.
I think pitch is a very efficient way of pitching for business that's very clean. It's minimalist. I like the interface of it. And for me, that's the back-end adjustability helps me a lot. You can add testimonials in, you can take sales and add them in or take them out. I can text it to someone. I don't have to email it through to them. Sign on glass is another one. Sign is another product that we use for every property that we sell, everything that we do, whether it's an agency agreement or a contract. We're not using the traditional paperwork anymore. For me, it's impossible. Like today, to give you an example, I'm in a multi-offer scenario on 2 properties, and I reckon we've made between 20 and 30 adjustments to the prices of these different offers. So we've gone back and forth and increased price or taken off conditions. And if we were doing that in hard copy, it just wouldn't happen. Like I'm not going to be able to meet these people and make these incremental changes. So anyone that's not using sign-on glass, I think you're missing out on a lot of efficiency in your business. Pitch is, for me, very clean. It's minimalist. It's easy to customize and curate, and it's efficient. And that's the benefit of these products is they're taking away a lot of background admin work, simplifying it, and giving you access to something that the consumer will be looking at. And it's very well received. I haven't had anyone come back to me and question or comment negatively on these things. So the consumer is liking it. For me, agents would need to adapt to that and implement it.
Susan, while we're about 20 minutes into this, could you please actually put in the chat box and also on social media the link to Realtair, realtair.com/sign-up/ for those of you that have actually been part of our series that we've been going through over the last 4 or 5 months, and you're now tempted to actually explore it or actually sign up. There's the link. Susan's put it in the chat box. She's also putting it on social media. And I'm also going to say, please don't forget to check out our prospecting rocket fuel for our video series about Realtair's prospecting tools, and grab the free downloads and the templates and the scripts that we've provided. So Alex, I was going to ask you, the ability to, I'm going to move, do you get upset when you lose a listing? How does Alex Jordan think, act, behave after he's heard news that he's lost a listing to another agent?
Yeah. Oh, look, Tommy, psychologically, it can be hard depending on the situation. If you've invested a lot of time with someone, and, I had one recently that I lost that was, for me, psychologically, it was a bit hard, but I've learned to get over it very quickly, and I've got to move on. I mean, in this business, you're going to get rejection. You're going to get things going badly and not in your favor. It's going to happen for the rest of your career, whether you're writing 300, 500, 10 million. I don't think that changes. The ability to recover from that situation, I think, is really vital. I used to dwell on these situations. When I lost a listing, it would take me a couple of weeks to recover. You know, I'd think about it and my failures constantly. Today, I try and recover from it very quickly. And the way I interpret it in my head, and this is the way that I have to justify it to make me feel better, is that, look, that wasn't meant to be for me. I wish them well. It was the right decision for them at that time. And maybe if I took it on, it wouldn't have worked out and things would have gone wrong. And so this isn't meant to be. I accept that. And I believe that the universe will pay me back in different ways. And I'm looking forward to what comes back to me. So I've got to have a more positive attitude towards it, because it's hard. You know, as an agent, sometimes the rejection of a seller when they don't list with you is almost like an insult. It's as if your relationship with them is now completely ended. You know, we thought we liked each other. You obviously don't like me anymore. It becomes very personal, but it shouldn't be that way, because there's tons of agents out there. And in reality, if someone else gets the listing, they've out-hustled me. They've done a better job. They've had better communication. They've had a better pitch. They've convinced the vendor that they're a better option. So they deserve it. And hats off to them, like respect to that. Like that's the reality. And for me, there's lessons. Everything that happens that is not going in my favor, I try and interpret that as a very valuable lesson. One that I'll take with me and try and benefit from it for years to come. So I might have lost this one listing, but I'll make sure that next time I don't make those same mistakes. I was too casual. I didn't follow up enough. I thought it was in the bag. I'd helped them for a year prepping the home. My builder did the renovations. My landscaper did the gardening. My stylist did the quote. I went in and told them exactly what colors to paint the walls and what carpet to choose. And so it was this whole venture of a year. And then suddenly they were like, oh, we just went to an auction and they said they could get this. So we've ended up signing with them. I was like, oh, that was heartbreaking. But there was a lesson in that for me. And I think anyone that goes through those experiences, well, you got to get over it. Life is bigger than real estate. You're going to miss things. Shit's going to go bad. Let's be real. But the way I get over it is I look at it as a lesson. And that lesson is don't be complacent. Keep in touch more frequently. Add more value. Sell the sizzle. Because if I had done that and I wasn't so carefree, I don't think I would have lost the listing. But I had this assumption that it's in the bag, so I'll just cruise with it. And someone else came and outgunned me. So there's good lessons in that. But the ability to recover, I think, is really vital, and get over it and move on. There's going to be another opportunity down the track.
It's funny you say that, Alex, because I don't pitch for listings, but I get asked to pitch for conferences, which is the same. I'm pitching. And every time there's an existing relationship and they already know, and I can tell from the tone of the conversation that they're on my side, I often find I cut the corners.
Yeah.
And I think if someone wanted to see a really good presentation that I would do, it would actually be to the catch and kill. Yeah. Because the catch and kill, where there's no pre-existing relationship, I'm doing all that. I'm asking the questions. I'm diagnosing. I'm probing for values. I'm doing everything right. And then sometimes, it happened to me about 3 months ago. I've done this conference, Alex, 6 times for this client, and they ring up, and I've assumed I'm getting it right. That's the fee. This is the date, can do. And then when I ring them up, and they said, listen, you know, we still love you, Tom, but we want to let you know, as a company, we've made this decision for this year, but next year, you know, they try and soften it up. And I said, can I ask why? And they just said, look, you know, this person, like, he's on point for what we need right now. And then I realized I didn't even know what you need right now. I was just looking at the damn date. You know what I mean? So this other person would have done it. There's a question that's come through, Alex, here from Dylan. Hi, Tom, can you please ask Alex about auction? He's very successful without it, but he does not use this method. Okay, so nearly is every one of your property private treaty or by negotiation, is it?
Yeah, Tommy, my business is predominantly private treaty with a price guide or a range or offers above. I price probably 90–95% of what I list. I'm not against auction. I think if an agent is good at auction and knows how to run the process, then you can build a very strong business in this industry. And if you're in Sydney or Melbourne or an auction savvy market, you'd be foolish not to adapt to that. Brisbane is not as strong with auctions as Sydney, Melbourne, you can still be very successful in Brisbane being an auction agent. In my experience, there's a natural resistance to auction from the consumer's point of view. When I'm sitting a listing presentation, very rarely do I hear the seller say, oh, Alex, we want to go to auction. If anything, the comment is actually, we're not too keen on auction. And I can see the logic in that, because you can use statistics in your favor and cut and paste how you wish. But the stats that I use for auction in Brisbane is that the clearance rates are low. Some of the reserves are being reduced to meet the market. Not every buyer is ready to bid at auction. There's a portion of the market in Brisbane that is very genuine and legitimate, but they just need a bit more time and space to get the deal over the line, and they're likely willing to pay a higher price for that. So I'm not an agent that is dogmatic about that. If the seller says, oh, Alex, we definitely want to go to auction, I would say, no problem, I can facilitate that for you. Here are the pros and cons. As long as we're willing to accept the risks and the potential rewards, then I'm on board. But I just don't choose that method for one important reason in Queensland, which might be different in New South Wales, Victoria. Our laws have changed here. You cannot provide a price guide, a price range, or any indicative value when you're selling for auction or at auction. So if a buyer comes in and says, Alex, how much is this home? Give me a rough range. I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to answer that based on the legislation. Here are some comparable sales, and you can come to your own conclusion. I don't think that benefits me, because my skills are in using relevant data to defend the price, to prove value to the buyer, to get into robust conversations about the pricing. I find that that's where my skill is. And if I don't have that opportunity to have that discussion, if I've got to stay silent, I'm not adding enough value for the vendor. I'm letting the buyer come to their own opinions, their own conclusions. And in my experience, when you let the buyer decide value, it typically comes in under. So the agent needs to do some guidance there to get the buyer to the right outcome. And with Queensland law, there's some limitations. So to answer your question, Dylan, there's some of the reasons I don't choose auction, but I wouldn't deter anyone else from doing auction, because I think if you're a good auction agent, you can build a beautiful business in this industry.
All right, just touch brief. Thank you. Well, beautifully said. And believe it or not, even though I spend Saturdays doing auctions, I agree with you. I mean, I go to some properties, Alex, and I think to myself, this should not have been an auction property, because I think if you're a reasonable agent, you can tell at the time of listing, are we going to have like multiple people fighting over this? Or is this going to be one of these ones where I've got to actually get one buyer, work with this one buyer? It's not going to be great social proof if they're on an auction floor and there's no one else there and they can see that they're the only one that seems to like it. That's not a good look for that buyer. So I agree with you. But Denise has asked a question, and Dylan's just said, thank you. He's watching from Auckland. Now, Denise Barrington has asked, when you say media channels, what are they? I suppose you're talking about the various social media platforms, and is that what you're referring to?
Media channels that I'm referring to are YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and I think another one that I would be actioning if I'm an agent wanting to build market share is Google AdWords. So they're the main elements. And you can have your own channel, basically. You can have your own media. I mean, there's people that have started, if you look at Joe Rogan, Tom, Joe Rogan has an audience that is 100 times bigger than the entire CNN network. Yes. How massive is that? That's an individual that's been able to get to that number or that level. That's the world of today. You don't need to be a celebrity. You don't need to have polished content and beautiful production. It can be raw, it can be real, and it appears more authentic, but you've got to get on there. You've got to put yourself out there. And I think you also have to sponsor that content. If you just put it out there and you don't have a strong following, you're not going to get much reach or visibility. So you've got to invest in your business. And there's a reluctance in this industry to invest, which is really puzzling to me, because any other business, you got to pay for a fit out. You've got to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars making it look pretty. And then you sell $4 cups of coffee to break even in 3 years. And then you say to an agent, spend $5,000 boosting some video content on these social platforms. And they're like, oh, $5,000, that's a lot of money. And it is. I don't want to downplay that, but one listing will make you back that plus some. So can you get one listing from putting some content out there that's relevant to the consumer and is intelligent? I think you'll get a lot more opportunities. But you've got to become the source of intelligent information. So you've got to be that person that the community looks at and says, when I want to talk about real estate, who do I ask? Who do I go to? You know, I get people calling me that are selling in different areas with different agents. I've got Sydney people calling me sometimes because their friend told them to give me a call, asking for advice about whether they should accept an offer or not and what sort of terms. And so you've got to become that source where people see you as a credible person to get in contact with and get some real estate advice. And the specialist is the one that will get those opportunities. So you've got to pinpoint where you want to target.
Okay, beautiful. Team, again, I want to remind you, presented to you today by Realtair on Tech Tuesday, and Alex has been covering the various things that you can be doing in tech to make you an attraction agent and to keep the attention on people that you've met. He's spoken about signing on glass. He's spoken about how he sees pitch working in the marketplace. He's talked about social media and the various platforms, Google AdWords, and a question has come in from Octay. Could you please give us a couple of tips on listing properties that you believe are overpriced with a significant difference? I sell development sites, and in some cases, certain sites are being sold for prices that might seem outrageous at first glance. So I think in summary, what he's basically saying is on listing properties, what do? You're at a listing presentation, they look motivated, but they give you a figure that they're expecting that is 20, 30% more. What's the approach?
Don't kill the dream to start with. Don't be the dream killer. Because if you're the dream killer and you use the wrong words, you're probably going to be perceived as not having belief in their property. That's the big thing. They just don't think that you have enough belief. And they feel, the vendor feels, that, Tom, if you don't believe in my property, then you're probably not going to get the best price for it. So maybe I need to find someone who does believe in it. But this is an art. This is where it gets to dialogue, selective wording, language, to make sure that you still are the positive agent, that you can see the potential, you acknowledge how great their home is. However, rather than being this combative style of agent that says, Tom, you know, at 2.5 million, it's way above value. I don't think we'll ever get there. The market's just not there. That's a dream killer. Rather than that, I would restructure the wording, and it's case specific. I'm dealing with residential property. So for me, it would be, Tom, I would love to get you 2.5 million. And if a buyer is out there that has that sort of money to spend, I will find them for you. The sales evidence that I'm seeing, though, doesn't support that figure. So for me to give you that confidence, I need to see the sales evidence to support it. Let's talk about how we can get to 2.5 and align ourselves with what's trading there. And there's probably a couple of different paths that I think we can take. Number one, Tom, is our kitchen and the bathrooms are not renovated. And I can see that we can improve the value by doing those things and painting inside and out and doing a little bit of landscaping. Now, that's a significant investment, but I think we can get back multiples in what we put in. So for me, that's one path to get you the mid-twos and align with properties that are selling there. Secondly, the market will need to grow a little bit to get to that number. If you don't want to do anything, Tom, I need you to be patient and we need to give it some time. Eventually, your property will be worth 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. It's just a matter of time. But the question is, are we willing to wait for that time? Because it may take a couple of years at least for us to see the growth cycle again. So there's two different paths that I see that we can align ourselves with 2.5. Alternatively, I can go and look for them for you, but I just can't quote that to you, Tom, because I don't have the sales evidence to support it. So for me, that's the way I would roughly structure the sentence, because I want to say to them, I'm there for you, mate. I'll be there, but I don't want to bullshit you either. I'm not going to tell you it's 2.5.
Listen, you don't even have to explain that to me, because I'm just listening to you. You probably have done it so many times, you're even unconscious at it. I'm just listening to you. The way you keep saying, you know, it's like it's a partnership. I don't know even if you're aware that you were saying it, but you were making it feel like I'm in your corner. This is how it can be done. You weren't sort of saying you were saying we. And in many ways, that's sort of saying that, I mean, it's not a close, but you're sort of suggesting that I'm going to be working with you. You know what I mean? We've got to work out those other things. That's beautifully said, Alex. I'm hoping it matters to me before we leave here today, Alex, that we touch on there's a lot of people that watch various pieces of real estate training content, and often they're people that are in a position of suffering. They're people that are actually thinking to themselves, I better and there's been a bit of an exodus of agents in Queensland. I know the data there, Alex, but you were potentially one of those agents not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, even maybe less, where you're at a crossroads and you start looking at job adverts and looking at other options for you. You were looking at pharmaceutical sales, and you could have gone down that path had you gone to an interview, accepted a job. Maybe you would not have come back into real estate. Highly unlikely, maybe. Probably you would have stayed there. You'd be on 150 grand. Now, you'd be one of the better ones. You'd be on about 250, right? You'd be a high-performing pharmaceuticals sales, business development person, call it what you like, whatever titles they have there. But you stayed in real estate. You're making millions. You've had the luxury of using some of the money you make to pay off your parents' home and see the joy and happiness it gives you, that you can give them a life that's effortless for the remainder of the next 20, 30, 40 years of their life. How old are they, Alex? How old are your parents?
About 70, mate. 70 years old, roughly.
Okay, so if they got another 20, 30, that'd be great.
They'll be very happy with that, mate. They'll take 20 or 30, happily.
So Alex, you're at a crossroads, at a career. You were going to leave, weren't you?
Yeah, Tom. Yeah, look, if other agents are listening to this that have been in the industry for some time, they've tried different things and nothing's worked, it's really disheartening. You start to question yourself. You start to question your ability. You start to question whether you're capable. And I was there in 2011 after 12, 13 years of trying and failing. And I did want to leave the industry because I didn't have a business. I had a failed business. And it was self-induced, mind you. I'm not going to blame anyone else. It was me ultimately. But it was disheartening at that point, and I would have taken another job. And for me, when I look back, Tom, there's so many blessings that I wasn't given the opportunity, because there's nowhere else I could have gone. There's nothing else I could have done that would have given me the opportunity that this industry has. And there's no other industry that I'm aware of or familiar with that you can come in as a nobody with no background, no pedigree, very little education, and within a few years make as much as what a surgeon would after 10, 20 years of study and experience. So what a great opportunity. What an amazing industry where there is no limit to where you could get. The only limits are really psychologically self-induced. But it's hard when you fail. It's hard when you try and you fail. For me, I didn't have the formula for so many years. I was chopping and changing, targeting too big of an area. I wasn't consistent. I wasn't putting high quality content out there. I wasn't building a profile. I was being a transactional agent, looking for the chase and kill for the next deal every single time. I wasn't building relationships. I was looking for the next listing and the next sale to keep me going. That was a mistake that I made. But you have to be willing to make some sacrifices if you want to succeed. If you're not willing to do the hard tasks, and I call them hard, but in reality, they're very simple. It's picking up a phone and calling people. It's knocking on a door to share some information that's relevant to them. We're not even going in saying, I want your listing or let's sell your house. I'm just conveying what's happened in the area. And that's all I would ask someone to do, is build relationships by sharing relevant data with your consumers and start to build a profile of being the expert. It will take some time, but it does work. And if I hadn't seen the success, if I hadn't seen the progress, I wouldn't have the belief. But I've come from nowhere. I've come from a failed business after 10, 12 years of trial to something that's now, I would say, is on the successful side. And I was a failure. So I don't think anyone can give up with that mindset, because if you give up now and you go into a job as any other industry, sales rep at pharmaceuticals, you're pretty capped. You're going to earn 100, 150, maybe you're really good and you earn 2 or 250. But let me tell you, put that same level of effort and discipline into real estate and tell me what you get back. And I promise you it's multiples. But the problem is discipline, because most people get complacent and they don't want to do the hard things and they procrastinate and they say, I'll make that call tomorrow, or I'll knock on that door tomorrow, or I'll do those videos for social media next week. I don't feel good. You got to start doing it before you start feeling it. You're not going to feel it until you do it. And this is the biggest mistake I made. I was waiting for the moment that I felt right before I took action. Take the action, despite how you feel, and the feeling will change. But the action comes first.
It's just, geez, you got a great way. Whatever you do, do not become a real estate trainer. I'll lose business.
No, mate, you're the master, Tommy.
You have just got to, mate, do it before you feel like it. All the research is very clear out there, evidence-based, that if you only do things when you feel like them, you won't be doing them much. And the one thing is, it's very clear, Alex, the minute you do it, you will actually feel better anyway. So it's a no-lose formula. Anyway, listen, thank you so much. Again, team, if you're not on Realtair, they're in the chat box, the details. In summary, Alex, I've got to say, here's what I've heard, that you can build an astonishing brand in a fraction of the time using tech these days. That technology is going to allow you to have time, and time is money. That gives you scale. I've heard that make things easy for you between signing on glass, using pitch to actually stay in contact and relevance with clients, whichever way that you're doing it. And most importantly, find a smaller area and get the attention of those people in a positive way, not the attention by, you know, stripping your clothes off or wearing pink underwear, say, look at me, but giving them information that makes them wiser, more intelligent, even when that information, this is what I got from you, even when that information feels like it is got nothing to with you to get a listing, right? But they are beginning to associate you as the Google of your marketplace. This is the guy. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Beautifully said, mate. That's perfectly said.
All right, Alex. I wish there was lots of you around. It'd be don't get me wrong. You know, there's lots of great real estate clients, but the ability to stay humble says to me, good guys do come first. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much, Realtair. Much appreciated. And those of you that haven't joined yet, sign up and at least get the free prospecting tools and the resources. Thank you so much, Alex. Stay
Pleasure,
well.
mate. Pleasure.
On your award, and congratulations on REB. I think #1 in Queensland as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we're lucky there this year, mate. We got that one. Yeah.
Well done. Congratulations.
Legend. Appreciate it, guys. Best wishes.